You know, they have been digging into every possible aspect of Brett Kavanaugh's past. And finally, we have a confession. Here it is.
Yeah, I think I was a thug for a big part of my growing up. I got into fights. I drank and did and consumed substances that weren't always legal. Some of my behavior was self-destructive. You know, I might drink a six-pack in an hour before going back to class.
Wait a minute. That wasn't Brett. That was Barack Obama. That is amazing. An amazing piece of video, just reminding us. It actually is saying something important. That everything the Democrats have done has redounded on them. Every torpedo they fired has turned around in the water and sunk their submarines. It is amazing. We are on the brink. I try not to report on the future because I don't know what the future is. Nobody knows. But it looks to me, it seems to me right at this minute that we are on the brink of one of the great political disasters in the Democrat Party's history. This is worse than that time they had to give up their slaves after the Civil War. This is really bad for the Democrats. The FBI thing is in, and just about everybody who's had a look at it, the FBI investigation into Brett Kavanaugh, that they said, oh, this is going to be this is the thing, this is the one that's going to do it. It has come in, and according to everybody who's looked at it so far, it doesn't corroborate any of the stories that have been told about him, Christine Blasey Ford's stories. All of that stuff is going by the boards, and that means Mitch McConnell, cocaine Mitch McConnell, has now scheduled the vote. I believe it's going to be on Saturday, but he's filed the closure report that he needs to have the vote. This, from the beginning, you've heard me talk about this a million times, even back during the primaries I was talking about this, that Donald Trump has this magical ability to make other people destroy themselves. He has this magical ability to make other people destroy themselves. Marco Rubio, remember when he went after Trump's hands, he was trying to sound like Trump and it just embarrassed himself. Even, Ted Cruz, who I supported, thought he could outsmart Trump, but in fact, Trump was actually out ahead of him all the time. Hillary Clinton, the media, now the entire Democrat Party. Why? Why? Because Trump is Fight Club. Trump is Fight Club. You think you're punching the other guy, but you're really fighting with yourself. And this is true of Trump. Everything about Trump is them. That is the whole point of Trump. That's why he keeps getting them, because they think he's Fight Club. They think they're punching another guy, but it's really just them in the guise of Donald Trump. What do they say about him? He's rude. He's rude. He's nasty. But this is after 30, 40, 50 years of them calling us sexist and racist and homophobic and Islamophobic and every name they could think of. But they thought that was okay. That was okay because it was them saying it, and they're so virtuous. He's them. They're him. They're punching themselves in the face. It's Fight Club. They say, oh, he's sexist. Who's been protecting the molesters of women all these years? Bill Clinton, Ted Kennedy. Who has been doing that all these years? It's them. He's them. Everything they're saying about them redounds on them. It is amazing. He's racist. Who turns everything to race? Who's been spending the last 2 weeks saying white men, white men? It's all about white men. It's all about the color. Anything you say has to be about the color. Who is hateful, authoritarian, and violent? All the things they call him. It's them. It is them. They are punching the mirror image of themselves. There was this video that came out. I got to play this because it's so amazing. It takes place in Toronto, but it could have taken place here. It has taken place here in effect. There's a pro-abortion guy is standing near a protest of abortion, and he kicks this woman. He roundhouse kicks this woman to defend women's rights. Classic leftism. Play this clip.
What?
They actually have people filming you the whole time. Which
Cool.
classic, kill with kindness.
Guess what? Hey.
Destruction of private property. It's against the law.
Somebody gets raped by somebody and they're like, I'm a 16-year-old and I can't have this baby. Think you should keep it?
It's a baby.
Yeah.
If someone is raped and she gave birth and she decided to kill her 3-year-old child.
I meant to get your phone.
Someone call the cops.
Meant to kick your phone.
Do not touch me. Someone call the cops.
I meant to.
He says, I meant to kick the phone. He threw a roundhouse kick at a woman. The guy's name is Jordan Hunt. He's been fired from the hair salon where he worked. The cops don't do anything about this, by the way, because it's Toronto and they all agree with him. But you know, the thing about it is that he's being so reasonable and he's got it. He knows it all. He's so much smarter than they are. How dumb are they? He's a thug, right? He's a thug. And this is the thing. They're shouting at Donald Trump, but everything they say about him, it all redounds on them. Do you remember when criticizing the FBI, Republicans criticizing the FBI was undermining the American establishment, and was undermining Americans' faith in their institutions? Do you remember that? Here's Morning Joe, cut number 1. There's Morning Joe back in January, back in the deep backward and abysm of time. They're criticizing the Republicans for attacking the FBI.
This dirty pool that is being played by members of the Senate and the House and the administration, you're undercutting the foundation of this democracy because you're supposed to preserve it. And you're using it right now to try and deflect from possible crimes committed by the president.
By the way, and we talked about this yesterday. Today, somewhere in your state, somewhere definitely in your country, there are FBI agents that are going around. They're trying to get intel. They're trying to get information. They're trying to break apart terror networks of homegrown terrorists that want to blow up your church, that want to blow up your synagogue, that want to kill you or your family or other people in your community. And it is these FBI agents who stand between you, me, all of us, and future terror attacks.
How could you criticize the heroic heroes of the heroic FBI? How could you stain these wonderful men and women who serve you? You know, because then the FBI was investigating Russia collusion and Trump and all this. Now they bring in this report that the Democrats begged for, this report that the Democrats said would be dispositive. This would solve the problem. This would be the thing that would clear or condemn Brett Kavanaugh. Here it is. Here's the report. It is finally here. It's not good enough. Remember, James Comey gave the marching orders to the FBI through the op-ed of the New York Times, which is where the left talks to itself. He gave the orders. He said, you can do this. You can get this information on Brett Kavanaugh. You can get this thing that the Republicans don't want you to get. Didn't turn out that way. Here's CNN covering, is it CNN? Covering the FBI, ABC covering the FBI report, cut 7.
The FBI investigation of Judge Kavanaugh is under the microscope this morning. A new report claims the agency chose not to interview several people who knew the nominee in high school or college, and these were people who wanted to tell their stories. ABC's senior national correspondent Terry Moran is in Washington with more. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Robin. This FBI investigation was fast, it was limited, and several potential witnesses are now claiming it was incomplete. Overnight, potential key witnesses in that FBI investigation are speaking out. They're frustrated after they say they were ignored by agents investigating claims of drunken sexual assault by Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. In a statement overnight, attorneys for Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, who accuses Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her in high school, her lawyers saying, "We are profoundly disappointed that after the tremendous sacrifice she made in coming forward, those directing the FBI investigation were not interested in seeking the truth."
So now, you know, Trump is Fight Club. Before, the FBI was the heroic heroes of herodom, and now suddenly the FBI just cannot get the job done. What a bunch of incompetence. They're hiding the truth. What a conspiracy to cover up for Brett Kavanaugh. Every time they try to punch at Trump, they wind up with a fist in their face, their own fist in their own face. And, you know, it's no good saying, well, it was wrong. Okay, well, maybe it was wrong when they covered up for Ted Kennedy leaving a woman to drown, but that doesn't make it right to go after, you know, when Trump says something in a locker room. You know, that's not a good argument. That's not a good argument. The rules of the fight are the rules of the fight. And if you're going to bring it this way, if you're going to bring the fight dirty, you're going to get dirty back at you. And that's what's happening. People are angry. They're tired of it. And why do I say it's a disaster? Well, for one thing, the enthusiasm gap, according to a new poll, the enthusiasm gap between Republicans and Democrats for the midterms has virtually vanished. The right is now thinking, hey, they could do this to anybody. They can do this all the time. They're going to destroy anybody who's a conservative. They're going to rip his life to pieces. I'm going to go out and vote. Trump is at 50%, according to Rasmussen. His approval rating is at 50%, which is really high for him and is above his disapproval rating. But listen to this. This is the thing that really gets me. Bret Stephens. Now, I actually kind of admire Bret Stephens. I admire his intelligence. I admire his look at the international scene. But he hated Donald Trump so much. He left the Wall Street Journal, basically, and went to the New York Times so he could take pot shots at Donald Trump. He has not said a good word about him. He has been a never Trumper. When I say never Trumper, I mean never with a capital N, Trump with a capital T. He hates this guy. Today he writes, for the first time, and he's writing in the New York Times too, for the first time since Donald Trump entered the political fray, I find myself grateful that he's in it. I'm reluctant to admit it and astonished to say it, especially since the president mocked Christine Blasey Ford in his ugly and gratuitous way at a rally on Tuesday. Perhaps it's worth unpacking this admission for those who might be equally astonished to read it. I'm grateful because Trump has not backed down in the face of the slipperiness, hypocrisy, and dangerous standard setting deployed by opponents of Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. I'm grateful because ferocious and even crass obstinacy has its uses in life, and never more so than in the face of sly, moral bullying. I'm grateful because he's a big, fat hammer fending off a razor-sharp dagger. And he talks about all the different things, and he says at the end that, I admit to feeling grateful that in Trump, at least one big bully was willing to stand up to others. See, but the thing is, Brett, that is what everybody else has been seeing all these years. The difference between, and by the way, I'm guilty of this too. I did that video that got like 17 million hits where I teased people for being so angry and therefore voting for Donald Trump. But now I get it. I see why you're angry. I saw then why you were angry, but I see why Donald Trump is the answer to that anger for you. The problem with Bret Stephens, the problem with so many of us who have a voice, is we don't understand what it's like to be in the majority of the people who don't have a voice. Bret Stephens gets to go in the New York Times every day and write what he has to say. I get to come to the Daily Wire every day and say what I have to say. It is a release. It is a sense that you can fight back. It's a sense of not being helpless. But what if you're a mechanic? What if you run a drugstore? What if you work in a real estate firm? And every day for decades, the press, the people who have a voice come on and tell you you're no good. You want to judge? Sorry, we can just throw an allegation at him and destroy him. We can just take him out, even without proof. And we can just throw aside, hundreds of years of Anglo-American jurisprudence out the window because we don't like them. We don't like you. We don't like your values. We don't like your Constitution. We don't like your history, your tradition, your religion. You're done. Your guy is done. They can do that to you, and you don't get to go to the New York Times and write a column. You don't get to go on the Daily Wire and rant in front of a microphone. Of course you send Donald Trump. They're lucky you just sent Donald Trump. They're lucky you didn't show up with pitchforks and torches. What on earth? Why has it been so hard? Why has it been so hard for the Republican establishment, the people who do have a voice, to understand the frustration, the decades-long frustration of people who don't? Trump has given him that voice, and he's done it by being them, by imitating the bullies who have bullied the people. NBC is a bully. CBS is a bully. ABC is a bully. Putting George Stephanopoulos as the head of your news department, a Clinton hack, is bullying. It is saying to people, oh, you know what? You can't touch us anyway, so we're going to do anything we want, say anything we want. We're going to pretend to be objective while really just pushing the Democrat line. You can't do anything about it. Nya, nya, nya. That's basically what neener. It's basically what they've been saying to you. Trump is the answer to that. And look, the other thing that is wrong-footing Democrats here is reality. Female unemployment. First of all, the jobs, I don't even know if we've mentioned this. I mean, this is the way the news cycle just eradicates the actual news. The hysteria, the panic that they sell eradicates the actual news. The job numbers for the last quarter were spectacular. They were spectacular. And female unemployment is currently at a 50-year low of 3.9%, less than half the rate it was as recently as President Obama's second term. Cut in half. This summer, the female unemployment rate, I'm reading this from Breitbart, reached its lowest level in 65 years. When you consider how small the female labor force was back then, it's safe to say it's never been easier for a woman to find a job than it is today. So while the Democrats have been covering up for Matt Lauer and Harvey Weinstein and Bill Clinton and Bill Cosby and Teddy Kennedy, while they've been covering up, they also haven't been serving women. So Donald Trump curses. He hasn't treated women the way you would like a man to treat women over the years. He has been what he has been. Although he's been it openly, he wasn't pretending to be anything else. But his policies, the policies that he represents, have helped women. Plus, nobody has noticed this but me, The way they tell the story of the Trump administration is what a mess it's been. All these people have been fired. This one was fired. He brought in this one and fired. Everybody's fired. But the thing is, he came in here as a neophyte, and what he said he would do was he would learn the job and he would hire the best people. And now, suddenly, he's got Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, John Bolton as his national security advisor, Sarah Sanders doing a great job fronting for the place, John Kelly is great, and Jim Mattis has been there from the beginning. Jim Mattis, he's just been cleaning up, and all of this stuff, ISIS, gone from their caliphate is gone. It's reduced to like an outhouse, one of those like port of sands, they have. That is the caliphate of ISIS at this point. Even stuff you just don't notice. China is suddenly being challenged. I'm going to bring on Sebastian Gorka, who's got a new book out. It's one of the best interviews, not only he's ever done with me, it's one of the best interviews I've ever seen Sebastian do, because he's talking about what he really knows best, which is international security. And he talks about China being the main threat. And of course, I remember back during the primaries, I remember playing a funny clip of Donald Trump put to music, just saying, China, China, China. Trump got it. Trump got that this is the thing we have to worry about. Gorka is really fascinated about.